Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier sessions related to the head of income PGBP, we discussed about some of the conceptual aspects and understanding of various principles governing this head of income. Also, we discussed about the charging section 28, which is the guiding factor for making any particular income taxable under this head of income. Now let us enter into the real actual provisions which are most important ones in order to identify the deductions available, if available, how much available, if not available, how much not available. Why also can be frequently a question in this discussion on deductions. Unlike other chapters, this has a lot of logical things also which can be easily understood and remembered if required. But of course, all the deductions related provisions are contained somewhere between section 30 to section 37. Let us start with section 30, which is about rent, rates, taxes, repairs and insurance for the building. So this section is about expenses related to the building. Naturally, question comes, which building? Are we talking about SSC's house here? No, we are talking business. We have to always keep in mind SSC's business is our subject matter, not SSC's personal life. So the building means here the building that has been used by the SSC for his business. That is what we are talking. Sometimes it could be rented, sometimes it could be owned by the SSC, whatever it is. If it is owned, then obviously rent will not be there allowed as deduction. But if it is rented, leased by the SSC for conduct of his business, then the rent as a normal expenditure will be allowed as deduction. Actually speaking, there is nothing to discuss in section 30. Even normally also, of course, it is allowed as deduction because it is an expenditure. That's all. Any expenditure is allowed as deduction. This is also allowed as deduction. But yes, there are certain points to be noted here. First of all, we are talking about the building which is used for the purpose of business of the SSC. And SSC, when we say, always we have to keep in mind, PGBP is the broadest head of income where anybody could be the SSC, not necessarily individuals. Big companies also rent the buildings and they pay rent. Is it not an expenditure for them? Of course it is. Can they not claim deduction? Of course they can claim deduction under section 30. Nothing special in that. But what are the points especially to be noted is that first point, this is also one of the general principles which we already know. The rent, whatever we are talking about, is allowed as deduction, no problem. But the repairs, if at all, conducted by the SSC to the building in which he is conducting the business, he is also allowed as deduction only if that repairs are not capital expenditure. That is the main point. So what is a capital expenditure, what is not a capital expenditure is a debatable thing, big gray area. That does not mean always it is not easy to identify what is a capital expenditure and what is not. Capital expenditure is that which enhances the value of the asset. Any such expenditure is capital expenditure. So that has to be generally decided and judged using common sense rather than just going with some list of expenses. So for example, an SSC has shifted or transformed the entire flooring of the building where he is conducting his business from, let's say, normal tiles to granite tiles. Is that a capital expenditure? Of course, yes. It is a capital expenditure because there is a investment that is made onto the asset. So that is a capital expenditure as repairs. Let us say some additional walls have been constructed. A compound wall is constructed by the SSC for his premises. Is it a capital expenditure? Yes, it is. Like that, situations can be many. Let us say in one of the questions it was given that SSC has constructed an additional washroom. Is that a capital expenditure? Yes, it is. He may not be owner of that building, but he can do some additional fittings, which are assets, not expenses. So capital expenditure is simply that which creates an asset. Revenue expenditure is something which is incurred to maintain the building or maintain the asset intact. For example, painting of the property. Painting of property. Can that be considered as a capital expenditure? No, it is not. It is common revenue expenditure. So like this, many situations will appear. Only examples I am telling. Any other situation can appear in the examination question. How to know whether it is a capital expenditure or not? Answer is common sense and a little bit of thought process and judgment. That is required. But yes, what happens if the expenditure is a capital expenditure? Then it is not allowed as deduction under section 30, but of course it will be eligible for depreciation since it is creating an asset. That depreciation will be calculated under section 32, which we will discuss later. But the revenue expenditure that is incurred in the form of repairs, we can call it current repairs or revenue expenditure in respect of repairs, will be allowed as deduction. Of course, if he has undertaken to bear the cost of repairs, naturally. If owner does the repairs, SSC being a tenant, how can he claim deduction? For claiming deduction, always one common point is the expenditure should be incurred by the SSC himself. Somebody else is incurring expenditure, how can SSC claim deduction? Not possible. But of course, one more point here related to rent. Once again, a logical point to be just understood. Rent is allowed as deduction only when there is a real rent. That means SSC is the tenant of the building, not owner of the building. If SSC himself is owner of the building, can he claim notional rent on that as a deduction? Not possible. No. Rent is allowed as deduction only if the property is occupied by the SSC as a tenant. That is a point to be noted. Of course, if the SSC is owner of the building, but he incurs some repairs expenditure only, no problem. That will be allowed as deduction also. Even if he is not a tenant also, he can claim repairs expenditure. But rent expenditure he can claim as deduction only if he is a tenant. That's a, once again, common sense point. Very simple logical things. Insurance premium paid by the SSC in respect of the property, allowed as deduction, no problem. But another point, any sum paid by way of land revenue, which is generally paid to the state government, or the local rates or municipal taxes, which are paid to the local authorities related to the building, any such amounts related to the building paid to state government or local authority in the form of land revenue or local or other municipal taxes are also allowed as deduction, naturally, because they are really incurred by the SSC. But you have to be very clear once again. Which municipal taxes we are talking here? Municipal taxes here are paid by the SSC and those are deductible under the head of PGBP under section 30. We are not talking about the municipal taxes which are deductible from the gross annual value related to income from house property, because we know very well the income from house property head itself does not apply to the case where SSC runs his own business from his own premises. That was excluded from the scope of income from house property. Now here that comes under the head of PGBP, and if an SSC owns a building, runs his own business in that building, he cannot claim rent as deduction, no doubt, but he can claim repairs as deduction provided it is not a capital expenditure. He can claim insurance premium as deduction if he paid any insurance towards the property. He can claim municipal taxes, land revenue, any other taxes, local or state level taxes if in relation to the building are all allowed as deduction when the SSC is owner of the building. But condition is these expenses are subject to 43B. Now because the topic has come, what is 43B? This is also logic wise similar to the municipal taxes we know already. Logic wise, municipal taxes, what was the condition? Condition was they are allowed as deduction only on payment basis, not on accrual basis. Same logic applies to 43B also. 43B, which we will discuss in future, is related to all types of expenses which are allowed as deduction only on payment basis. But always keep in mind, we are in the PGBP chapter. Logic wise, there might be a relationship for understanding purposes between income from house property and here, but the context and head of income is completely different. So 43B is similar to that, where certain expenses are allowed as deduction only on payment basis. And one of them is already what we know, the municipal taxes or land revenue, because these are payable to the government, not necessarily central government. Land revenue is payable to state government, municipal taxes payable to local authorities, they are also governments. Since the money is payable to the government, it is allowed as deduction only on real actual payment basis. And that has to be paid by whom? Obviously SSC himself. That's all. These are the deductions that SSC can claim if he is owner of the building. If he is not owner of the building, then also he can claim all these deductions if he pays. Not necessarily that SSC has to be owner of the building in order to incur this expenditure. If he is not owner of the building also, definitely there is a possibility that he might incur repairs expenditure. There is a possibility that he pays insurance premium for that property. There is a possibility that according to the agreement between the SSC and his landlord, SSC might pay the municipal taxes related to the building. No problem. Whatever genuine expenditure paid by the SSC, incurred by the SSC in respect of rent, repairs, insurance premium is allowed as deduction on accrual basis. Taxes, land revenue allowed as deduction on payment basis. These are the deductions available to the SSC related to building. Once again, we have to be just careful enough to identify whether the SSC is owner of the building or not. We should not assume things unnecessarily. If there is a rent on the debit side of P&L account, if nothing is mentioned in the question, that means that is a rented building, the SSC is a tenant. Of course, it is allowed as deduction. That's it. However, arrears of rent related to the previous tenant cannot be deducted. Imagine there was a previous tenant who did not pay, and now the current SSC is paying arrears of rent related to the previous tenant. They cannot be deducted since simple logic once again. That is the reason why we discussed the general principles. Once you know the general principles, you can apply them in every provision. First of all, any expenditure should be related to the business. If this expenditure of paying arrears of rent related to previous tenant has been incurred, that is not related to SSC's business. He is paying it related to somebody else. That is not his expenditure at all. How can it be claimed as deduction? Not possible to be claimed as deduction. Another important point to be noted here, this can be a point also in the exam questions. A fluctuating item like a share in profit cannot be treated as rent. That will be still treated as appropriation of profit. Sometimes it may be like this. Let us say the landlord will have an agreement with the tenant saying that, boss, there is a fixed monthly rent of so and so amount, plus I want a share in your profit, or plus I want a share in your revenue. Owners might have that. A lot of cases it so happens that they will have a share in the profit of the tenant according to their agreement. But for the tenant, for the person who is paying a share in the profit or a share in the revenue, which is a fluctuating item, that cannot be treated as rent, means that cannot be allowed as deduction. So that will be treated as good as appropriation of profits. So fluctuating rent is not deductible. That is a point to be noted. Examples wise, revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, there will be hundreds, thousands of them. We cannot go into that. That is why we have to leave it to our own common sense and judgment. So these are the various expenses related to rent, rates, taxes, repairs and insurance in respect of building. If the asset is leased by the SSC or hired by the SSC, rates, taxes, repairs, insurance for asset owned by the SSC. Only difference between these two, leased or owned, is rent. All others can be claimed by the SSC genuinely if the SSC has really incurred them or paid them, particularly related to municipal taxes or land revenue. That's it. That is section 30. Starting with that, the deductions will begin. Then section 31. Same things, nothing special. But now, instead of talking about building, we are talking about plant and furniture. Machinery, plant, furniture. What are those? Repairs and insurance. Expenditure incurred on repairs, once again, not capital expenditure or insurance in respect of plant, machinery, furniture used for business can be claimed as deduction. What is the speciality in that? Nothing. Even if section 31 was not there also, we would have allowed it as deduction only because it is an expenditure incurred on the assets which are being used for the business. It is a genuine business expenditure. Definitely it is allowed as deduction. So probably the lawmakers would have started with section 30 and 31 thinking that they will list down all the deductions which are possible for the SSCs or possible for the businessmen. After reaching a certain level, they understood that they cannot do this. You cannot have the list of all expenses in the world which are allowed as deduction because there is an infinite list of such expenses. But yes, they tried a bit in section 30 and 31 to tell that rent, rates, repairs, taxes and insurance of building is allowed as deduction. Repairs and insurance of machinery, plant and furniture is also allowed as deduction because genuinely it is a business expenditure. Now the question comes, what about rent if at all machinery is rented? That is a problem with having some sections. That is also allowed as deduction, sir. Just because it is not mentioned here, does not mean it is not allowed. If it is a machinery, plant, furniture rented by the SSC, no problem. That is also allowed as deduction. That is a business expenditure. So, ideally speaking, these sections should not have been there. Unnecessarily, they create doubts rather than clarifying, giving only some names there. People will have 100 other names to the machinery. What about maintenance work of machinery? Boss, yes, it is allowed as deduction. That is also repairs. What about this? What about that? All are allowed as deductions, sir. As simple as that. Any expenditure, of course, not capital expenditure, related to plant, machinery, whatever it is, insurance, repairs, rent if it is paid or incurred, anything. Taxes and all will not be there on plant and machinery, so we don't have to worry. So, any expenditure, genuine expenditure related to building also, related to plant and machinery and furniture also is commonly allowed as deduction. There is no problem in that. That is the essence we have to take there. Exceptions and special points we have to keep in mind. In relation to building in section 30, exception was particular point, municipal taxes, land revenue have to be allowed as deduction only on payment basis. Another point to be noted there, notional rent never will be allowed as deduction. So rent is allowed as deduction only if the SSC is the tenant. That's common sense once again. And other things are all same for section 30 and section 31. Nothing different or special here in these two sections. But in the exam questions also there will be possible additional point for calculation. As a working note we have to show that. What if the assets are used proportionately for the business or profession carried on by the SSC? In other words, he is using the assets partly for business, partly for personal purposes. Then what? Question comes. Then deduction will be given only to the proportionate expenses which are related to the business as determined by the assessing officer. That only shall be allowed as deduction. But how do we know that we are not assessing officers? That is why it has to be given in the question. We don't have to worry about it. Let us say SSC is staying in a building. He has leased a building, he has rented a building in which ground floor he is having his profession, first floor he is having his residence as accommodation. So, can the rent paid for the first floor also be allowed as deduction from his profession? Not possible, because whatever is used for his profession, to that extent only the rent is allowed as deduction. That is always a common point. So the point is, personal expenses are not allowed as deduction from the business. How much allowed as deduction under PGBP, under section 30 or 31, for that matter any other section also in future, is only to the extent proportionately which has been used for the purpose of business or profession, that much only shall be allowed as deduction. So if the question says there is a building which has been leased by the SSC, 1/3 of that is used for Accommodation for his own residence, 2/3 is used for his business or profession. Rent expenditure for the building is 3 lakhs. Like that the question will have, let us say. Fine. 3 lakhs is a rent for entire building. How much proportionately we have to allow as deduction? How much is used for business or profession? Only 2/3. That means 2 lakhs only will be allowed as deduction. That's an example only. Like this, any case in the exam questions, if there is a mention about usage of the assets partially for business purposes, partially for personal purposes, to the extent it is related to the personal purposes, it cannot be allowed as deduction. To the extent it is related to business only, it can be allowed as deduction. That has to be always kept in mind, of course, keeping the facts of the case in mind, not just by having some examples and imagination of certain things will not help here. Facts of the case will determine that. The same scenario, let me give another example. Let us say there is a company. Company has a guest house, which is a building naturally, and that guest house has been rented by the company. It pays rent for that guest house, and one of the directors, or let us say the managing director of that company, stays in that guest house. So can we say that it is not allowed as deduction? Taking the earlier example, no. Earlier example was related to a single person, sole proprietor. For the sole proprietor, as far as the Income Tax Act is concerned, himself and business not separate. In accounting, there may be a separate entity concept. In Income Tax Act, there is no segregation of sole proprietor and business. Both are same. So, if at all there is any expenditure incurred by himself, that cannot be considered as business expenditure. That is personal expenditure. In this case, second case, company's MD is staying in a guest house which was leased by the company and company pays rent for it. Can that be allowed as deduction? Can that be claimed by the company as deduction? Answer is yes. So facts of the case will completely change the judgment. We cannot be rigid in that. Point to be noted is SSC is important. SSC is using the asset for personal purposes or not. In the first example, SSC was using that building for personal purposes for his own residence because he is the individual. In the second example, managing director is not the SSC, company is the SSC. SSC is not using it for personal purposes. Company cannot use anything for personal purposes. So that logic does not hold good for such type of organizations like companies. So when we say personal purpose, it is only particularly applicable for individuals. For companies, there is nothing personal. It is all corporate in the sense company is a distinct entity. All the employees, managing director also is an employee of the company. Maybe he is the 199.99% stakeholder in that company. Doesn't matter. All those things do not matter. Company was the SSC, and company owns that building also, no problem. It can claim depreciation. If company rents that building also, no problem. It can claim that rent as deduction. So that is the point to be noted. Particularly when there is a sole proprietorship, this concept of personal usage will come. Other cases, there is nothing personal, we can say. Now moving on to the most important section, I would say, in this entire chapter, that is section 32, depreciation allowance. Why is it most important? For many reasons. First of all, it is compulsory to provide depreciation. There is no option here. Provision of depreciation is compulsory, and that is real life situation. But as far as examinations are concerned, why is it also important is this is the section which has the potential of having questions exclusively on this section. Exclusively, what question can be there on section 30 or 31? Nothing is there. Expenditure, okay. Allowed as deduction, yes, that's all. There ends the matter. So that is not a question, yes or no. Separate question cannot be there. In a bigger question, there might be one point related to them, possible. But 32 has both sides. It's a double-edged sword. In the sense, It can be asked as a separate question exclusively on itself only, or it can be even a part of a bigger question. Either way, this can be asked. Will it be there in the exam or not? 100%, 200% it will be there. That is why the applicability of any particular provision or a section also has to be kept in mind while understanding the importance of it. Every SSC, irrespective of the nature of the SSC, every SSC will have assets. Once they have assets, they will have depreciation. That's all. That means almost everybody, whoever is having PGBP income, will definitely have applicability of section 32. If that is that much important in real life, definitely it will be more important, equally important in exams also. That is why very crucial section is section 32. And another reason why this is also crucial is this is a possible area where there is a risk of mixing up our accounting knowledge with income tax knowledge. That is the risk we have here. That should be avoided at all costs. So before entering into section 32, first thing first, we have to keep our depreciation knowledge in the locker for some time. And when we use that, once again, when you do accounts, you use that. Not using accounts knowledge here in income tax. If that is what we do, absolutely there is a high possibility of solving problems in income tax wrong. So keep that in mind. Section 32 is a unique section in the Income Tax Act. This has nothing to do with the normal depreciation methodology of calculation that we have been doing earlier. All these days, whatever we do in accounting, that is all separate. It is there. I'm not telling it is invalid or something. It is there, it will be there. But that is only applicable in accounting. We cannot bring that here. If we do that, too much of messing up will happen, and that will create definitely wrong answers. Be very careful there. Never mix up your accounting knowledge related to depreciation here. That has to be always kept in the back of the mind. That is why another importance also will arise. See, other things like 35 and all, there is nothing we can refer to in accounts there. It is directly allowed in income tax only, income tax related only. Huge difference between accounts and income tax you cannot find out elsewhere. There will be minor differences. Minor differences will be there, but not huge differences. Huge difference will come there, completely different. Completely means completely. That is why section 32 is also, once again, very, very important section to be known and remembered also. It's not just a logic that will give us a depreciation calculation correct. Also, we have to remember the rates of depreciation, which are given in the box here below. But before going to the rates, let us understand what are the conditions for claiming the depreciation. Natural conditions, those are all usually, common sense points only. Asset must be owned by the SSC, naturally. Then only you can claim depreciation. If it is rented, rent can be claimed as deduction, but not depreciation. Depreciation is allowed as deduction only for those assets which are owned by the SSC. Then asset must be used for the purpose of business or profession. Once again, same. So what if the same asset is used for personal purposes and business purposes? Then you have to split it. You have to calculate proportionate amount of expenditure which is used for business or profession. So if the SSC's own building is used also, he can claim depreciation only on that percentage of the building, that proportion of the building which is used for business or profession. He cannot claim depreciation on his own building used for his own residence. No. So definitely the asset should be owned by the SSC. It must be used for the business or profession, and it must be used in the previous year, naturally. But one point to be noted here, used is something which is sometimes taken in a very wrong way. Like literally it is taken, that is also wrong. Used is one of the points to be clearly noted. Used does not mean active use. For example, if an SSC has, say, a generator which is used only when there is a power cut, and imagine in a particular previous year there was no power cut, 24/7 the power was available, generator was not used because there was no power cut. So do we say that depreciation is not available? No, that would be wrong. It will be still available. So used should not be taken as active use. It can be active use also, it can be passive use also. Same logic can be applied to somebody having an inverter for backup plans for the power cuts. No power cut does not mean we will not have depreciation. We will still have depreciation on that inverter. It can be claimed though it is not really used. Same way, let us say fire alarm systems are all installed in the building. Fire extinguishers, fire alarm systems are all there. Lot of fire extinguishers are there everywhere in the building for a particular SSE. But fire never occurred in the previous year, so these extinguishers are never even opened also. That means they are not used. So do we say there is no depreciation on them? No, there is still depreciation. So the point to be noted is, we should not think that used means really it has to be used. It is active use or passive use also is enough. But it should be there with the SSE. That is what is important. So the word used cannot be taken too literally is the point we have to keep in mind. Then, depreciation is available on what type of assets? Broadly, we classify as usual tangible assets with the classification of three things broadly: building, machinery, plant or furniture. Three classifications of tangible assets are there in the Income Tax Act. Intangible assets, all of them are just called intangible assets, that's all. All intangible assets are one category only, whether they are know-how, patents, copyrights, trademarks, licenses, franchises, any other commercial rights or any other things similar to that, loom hours like that. All of them are called intangible assets. So those are part of intangible assets: patents, copyrights, trademarks, licenses, etc. Those are also assets of the SSE, but those are intangible assets. We don't distinguish among themselves, all of them put together we call them as intangible assets. But tangible assets, we give a broader classification of three categories. One is building, second one is machinery and plant, third one is furniture. So let us call it building, plant and machinery, furniture. These are the three categories of tangible assets, and all intangible assets are called intangible assets only. That is the classification of assets for the purpose of depreciation under section 32. Now, some of the basic concepts related to the computation of depreciation other than power generating units. That itself tells us. That means power generating units means electricity companies which produce power, not the distribution, generation we are talking. For them there is a separate classification and separate type of methodology which is possible for them. We will come to that later. So what we are going to talk about normally are all the points related to those businesses other than power generating units. So this is where the point comes. If nothing is mentioned, I will assume that it is a power generating unit and I will calculate accordingly. It will be over smartness, that will get 0 marks. So when it is given that it is a power generating unit, then only it is a power generating unit. Let me once again make it clear. Assumptions cannot be made unnecessarily. That is a point always to be noted. Assumptions can be made, no problem. But unnecessary assumptions cannot be made. So when the question is clear about certain things, we have to just take the information from the question and proceed according to the information available. Rarely it so happens that information is not sufficient. If that is the case, if we are forced to take an assumption, then only we take an assumption, not for the fun of taking assumptions. That has to be kept in mind. For example, in salaries chapter, let us say this, what is that, DA, dearness allowance is given, but it is not given whether it is forming part of salary or not. And for some of our other calculations, it is important to note whether it is forming part of salary or not. There is no option for us. We have to take an assumption there. We are forced to take an assumption there if it is not given. Just like that, some assumption we don't have to take. That is why facts of the case will matter a lot. Normally when we say all the businesses, power generation units are one side, entire other businesses are on other side. Which side we are looking at now? The other side, the normal side. Other than power generating units, how do they calculate depreciation? First and foremost point, very important and a different thing from accounts. Depreciation is admissible for block of assets. In accounts, depreciation is calculated asset wise, individual asset, one by one. If there are 5 plant and machineries, different machines are there, machine 1, machine 2, machine 3, machine 4, machine 5. In accounts, we calculate depreciation for each of them separately. But in income tax, we don't calculate depreciation separately for 5 machines. We will all call them as one block of asset. So the depreciation here under Income Tax Act is not on asset to asset basis. It is on block of assets basis. Very important point. And which method of depreciation we can choose? We have any choice here? No, sir. Under section 32, there is no choice. Accounts, there was choice. You can choose straight line method, written down value method, sum of the years of the digits method, blah, blah, blah. Any methods can be used. Now, no. Under Income Tax Act, only and only written down value method can be used. Done. That's all. Dot. No other options available to the SSEs. And what has to be considered here for calculating the WDV of a block of asset is actual cost. That itself is a very important word under discussion. We will come to that later. But actual cost has to be calculated first in order to calculate the WDV related to a block of the asset. So basic points here to be noted before entering into the real provisions of depreciation under section 32 are, of course, the asset should be owned by the SSE. It should be used for the business or profession during the previous year. And asset could be a tangible asset also, intangible asset also. But depreciation is available on a block of assets concept under only written down value method on the actual cost, which has to be computed in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act, not in accordance with Accounting Standard 10, not in accordance with any other general principles of accounting that we know or that we follow. That has to be always kept in mind. So let us for some time forget what the accounts says as far as depreciation is concerned in relation to section 32 of Income Tax Act. Then, what are these block of assets? Let us take a list of them. This has to be by hearted. There is nothing to explain here. This is a memory based table. You have to by heart it. Don't think that these percentages will be given in the question. Sometimes if they have that much of big heart, they may give percentage of depreciation also in the question, but not necessarily. There is no rule like that. So you have to remember this table for rates of depreciation. No option. You have to remember this by heart, this table. If possible, if required, you write them on paper, but remember them. What are the rates of depreciation? Residential buildings other than hotels and boarding houses. Rate of depreciation is 5%. Why will SSE have a residential building? Why not? Just like as we discussed earlier, a company was having a guest house, a residential building, in which the MD of the company or some of the staff of the company, managers of the company are staying. The company gives quarters to its employees. Is it not a residential building? Yes, it is. So, on those buildings, how much percentage of depreciation is available? Only 5%. And all these are per annum naturally, when nothing is mentioned. Then, non-residential buildings, like what? Office building, factory, godown, hotels and boarding houses. Non-residential building. Those are having a depreciation of 10% allowance. So, that is the residential building and non-residential building classification. Residential buildings 5%, non-residential buildings 10%. Temporary buildings, for example, for installation of plant and machinery, for example, let us say, while constructing a big project, there may be certain temporary structures made for offices there. Those are also eligible for a depreciation of only 40%. But that is a rare scenario. But if it is a temporary structure, then rate of depreciation is 40%. Naturally, you can understand why it is higher, because it is temporary structure. Then, residential buildings 5%, non-residential buildings 10%, temporary buildings 40%. These are the three categories related to buildings. Then coming to the furniture and fittings, the rate of depreciation is 10%. Furniture and fittings, including electrical fittings. All of them also will fall under furniture and fittings. For example, air conditioner, furniture fittings only that can be falling. electrical fittings also will fall under furniture and fittings. Interior decoration, electrical fittings, all of them will fall under this category. The rate of depreciation is 10%. You have to remember them. Now there is a big list of plant and machinery asset, but each of them is having a different rate of depreciation. Look at them individually. Normally the plant and machinery and motor cars which are used for the business, those are eligible for 15% rate of depreciation. In the question, if it is there plant and machinery, nothing else is mentioned, what is the rate of depreciation? 15%. Furniture and fittings, what is the rate of depreciation? 10%. Just buildings is mentioned, then 10%. If building is mentioned, we cannot assume it is residential building and all. We are talking business. Business normally will have business building only, office building only. That is normal. Residential is exceptional. That is where common sense once again comes to play. Just building is given. Sir, how would I know whether it is residential or non-residential? It is non-residential. Normally, that is office building, factory, go down like that. So, 10% is normal rate when the word buildings is only used. If it is residential, special case, 5%. If it is temporary, 40%, special case. Don't assume special cases. No assumptions required. Furniture and fittings, 10%, dot. One category only. Plant and machinery, 15%, that's it. If nothing else is mentioned. Or cars, vehicles, let us say it will be given in the question. So, vehicles means generally if nothing is mentioned, let us say cars. Cars is eligible for depreciation of 15%. What type of car we are talking here? Motor cars which are used for the business. The SSC has car which is used for the business. Depreciation on that car will be 15% per annum under section 32. Now there is a special amendment here. Naturally you have to remember that very well because it is amendment. Definitely our essay will focus on that in the examinations. What is this amendment and speciality? Rate of depreciation on motor cars is not 15% but 30%, double. When? If the cars are acquired between 23rd August 2019 to 31st March 2020, in our previous year only, but date of 23rd August you have to remember, no option. After, on or after 23rd August 2019, if car is purchased for the purpose of business, rate of depreciation given is 30%. Why was that? If you remember, automobile sector was in deep trouble. The beginning of the financial year 2019-20, entire automobile sector was almost trembling. Then government had to give some kind of boost or energy to them. One of the ways of attracting the businesses and companies to buy new cars is to give them higher rate of depreciation so that they can claim a bigger deduction. When deduction is more, taxable income is less, that means tax liability is less. That is a kind of incentive given to the buyers of new cars so that automobile industry can be revived. Whether it is revived or not and all is different story. We are not bothered about that. What we are bothered about is if motor cars for business are acquired between these dates, 23rd August 2019 to 31st March 2020, rate of depreciation on them will be 30%. Then other things like ships and all, ships, boats, etc., 20% rate of depreciation. And buses, lorries, taxis used for the business of running them on hire. So these are also cars. But what was the difference between the cars earlier and cars now? Earlier, the motor cars are used for business. That's all. Those are cars for their own business. They are using them. Those were eligible for either 15% or 30%, as the case may be. But now, what are the cars we are talking? Taxis used for business of running them on hire. So, like Meru Cabs is there. They own a lot of cars. Those are all the cars which are used in the business of running them on hire. For them, eligible rate of depreciation will be 30%. Same way, buses and lorries, any buses and lorries, even if they are not used for business of running them on hire. If a company has a bus let us say for transporting its own employees from city to the factory, it is eligible for 30%. If a company has a truck, when I say company, don't take it too literally. Company means SSC, whoever that business is. So that SSC has a lorry used for his own business, 30%. So buses and lorries, whether they are used in the business of running them on hire or even normally also, they are eligible for 30%. Cars used for business are eligible only for 15%. That is the difference. Of course, if the cars are purchased between 23rd August to 31st March in the previous year, then double rate of depreciation is given to them as an incentive that we have seen. Ships and speedboats 20%, that is always common. Now once again, the same dates, 23rd August to 31st March, one more incentive is given for the other category of automobile industry also, that is buses, lorries and taxis used in the business of running them on hire acquired between those two dates, 23rd August 2019 to 31st March 2020. The rate of depreciation now not 30%, that becomes 45%. So cars purchased for business during this time, rate of depreciation will be 30% instead of 15%. Cars, buses, lorries which are purchased during this period, acquired for the purpose of running them on hire, they are eligible for 45% depreciation instead of 30%. You have to remember these rates, conditions and dates also. So ships we know already 20%. Aeroplanes and all. Aeroplanes, aero engines, life-saving medical equipments and all. Those are eligible for 40% rate of depreciation. Not that important for us. If they are there, they will be there in the question. What is definitely important for us? Furniture and fittings, buildings, plant and machinery, cars acquired for business, particularly the amendment of further higher rate of depreciation will be definitely useful. Ships and all, very rarely. So who will have ships and all for their own business? Very few people. So our problems also generally will not have them. But remember that anyway, 20% for all the ships, speedboats, etc. Aeroplanes and all, 40%. Medical equipments, 40%. Again, very important one, because every business will have them, is the next category. That is computers including software and books. Those are eligible for 40%. This is very important. Everybody will have it. Nowadays, every business, every SSC will have computers or not. Yes. What is the rate of depreciation on that? 40%. Another very important point to note here, software under Income Tax Act is treated as a tangible asset. It is eligible for 40% rate of depreciation. Of course, for accounts purposes, though you don't know it now, under accounting standard 26, it is treated as intangible asset. There is a problem there. In accounts, it is treated as intangible asset. Software I am talking. Computer is computer, that is tangible, everybody knows. Problem comes with software. Software which is intangible, right? Can you see the software? No, you can only use it. So software is considered to be intangible asset under accounts, whereas it is considered to be a tangible asset as part of computers in Income Tax Act. That difference is also there. We cannot say software as intangible assets in Income Tax Act, because clearly it was given in section 32, computers including software is eligible for 40% rate of depreciation. Books are also eligible for 40% rate of depreciation. Now a question comes, because exam questions also will have this. He will tell, instead of books, he will tell periodicals. Periodicals like annual journals like that. Those are eligible also for 40% rate of depreciation. There is no classification now as far as books is concerned. Books, any type of books, those are eligible for 40% rate of depreciation. Sir, what about newspapers and all, daily? Those are not assets first of all. So they are not considered as assets only. Those are not considered as books only. So we need to be very clear about this also. From the facts given in the question, there is no categorization of books. Books means books. If the question says books, automatically we have to say 40% rate of depreciation. Dot. No other special things we should bring there. Now, Energy saving devices. What are those? Maybe whatever, we don't know. Electrical engineers will know that. Like they are eligible for 40% rate of depreciation. All intangible assets. This is important once again. All intangible assets are eligible for only 25% rate of depreciation. This is the list that you should by heart remember always. For purpose of section 32 calculation, we need to remember this list. There is no option. But categorization also you have to keep in mind. Tangible assets broadly are classified into three categories. One is buildings, two is plant and machinery, three is furniture and fittings. Intangible assets is intangible assets, always eligible for 25% rate of depreciation only. So that is the different types of blocks of assets, we can say, where different rates of depreciation are available. Now, naturally the question comes, what is this block of asset we are talking about? For the purpose of computing depreciation under this act, assets are grouped into various blocks and we call that block of assets. And as we discussed already, depreciation is charged on the block of assets rather than on individual assets. That is a point to be noted. For this purpose, we should know what is block of assets. What is the definition of block of assets? That was defined in section 211. The block of assets means a group of assets falling within a class of assets comprising of, as usual, as we know already, tangible assets being buildings, machinery, plant or furniture. Intangible assets also are block of assets. That is not important. We know that already, that list. The point is, in respect of which the same percentage of depreciation is prescribed. So, same percentage of depreciation, if it is prescribed within these categories, then it is called a block of asset. Let us understand with examples. Intangible assets are there. Let us say patents is also there, goodwill is also there in a question. Can we call both of them as belonging to the same block of asset? Yes. Why? Because they are falling in the same class of assets called as intangible assets, and all of them are eligible for same rate of depreciation, that is 25%. So that is one block of asset only. Another question, let us say building is there, furniture and fittings are also there. Both are eligible for 10%, 10%. Can we call that one block of asset, same rate of depreciation? Answer is no, they are not. Why? Because the class of assets is different. Buildings is belonging to a separate block, separate category. Furniture is belonging to a separate category. So a class of assets also should be there. And the same percentage of depreciation also should be there. Then only we can call it a block of assets. So, buildings belonging to a different block, furniture and fittings belonging to a different block, even though they have the same rate of depreciation. That is a point to be noted. But naturally another question comes. Sir, we have here a lot of things with the same rate also in plant and machinery. Can those all be considered as one block? Let us say computers, software, books, different names are there. But can we call all of them as one block? Yes, no problem, because they are belonging to the same class of asset, that is plant and machinery. So all of them can be considered as one block, even though description is different. There is no link between books and computers. But still both of them can be considered as one block because rate of depreciation is same, class of assets is also same, because both are called plant and machinery only here. So within the classification of plant and machinery, any two types of assets having the same rate of depreciation can be called as one block. There is no problem in that. But just because they have same rate of depreciation, we cannot say they are belonging to the same block. Like furniture and buildings having the same rate of depreciation, but still they are different blocks. That point has to be kept in mind. Same way, temporary buildings also 40%, books and computers also 40%. Can that be one block? No, they cannot be. Why? Temporary buildings is falling under the class of buildings. Computers, software, books is falling under the class of plant and machinery. So that is the point to be noted. For identifying the block of assets, we have to take two categories. One, they should belong to the same class of asset. Second, they should have the same percentage of depreciation. If both conditions are satisfied, then only we can call them as one block of assets. That's a very, very important, crucial point to be noted. Then, within plant and machinery, let us say normal plant and machinery is there, which is eligible for 15%, and let us say computers are there, which are 40%. Can we call that one block because both are plant and machinery? No, because both are having different rates of depreciation. Not possible. So, plant and machinery at a 15% block is different block, and books and software, computers is a different block of 40%. So, always we have to keep that in mind. Block of assets should have same rate of depreciation and it should fall within a same class of assets. Then only it can be called as one block of assets. That is a classification part related to the block of asset concept. And how to find out the written down value on which we have to find out the depreciation using the applicable rates. Okay, we know that rates are there, 5%, 10%, 40, 20, 30, 25, like that different rates are there. Those rates are applied on what? On what amount? Those are applied on this amount. That is the depreciable amount, we can say, at the end of the year. That is 31st March 2020 for us, because our previous year ends on 31st March 2020. But how to find out that? On which we are finding out depreciation. So the rates are applicable on this, on the ending written down value before providing depreciation at the end of the year. How to get that? First of all, we should start with opening written down value. Naturally, that is at the beginning of the year. That is depreciated value. Depreciated already in the last year. After depreciation, also provided whatever is remaining, that was the ending written down value, depreciated value in the last year. Naturally, that becomes the opening WDV, you can call it simply. Opening written down value on 1st April 2019 we'll start with. Then we have to add what? Actual cost, another important word. Actual cost of the assets in the block put to use during the previous year 1920. So in the previous year, if any assets are purchased, naturally, then only usually the actual cost will come into picture. If they are purchased, that is straightforward. Whatever the original cost of purchase is, that will be added here in step 2. But here we have to categorize the assets into two categories. One, those assets which are put to use, each word is important, put to use for less than 180 days, and assets which are put to use for 180 days or more. More than 180 days is not exactly correct. 180 days or more is better. So put to use for less than 180 days are segregated separately, and put to use for more than 180 days are segregated separately. But ultimately both are added to the opening WDV, which was prevailing at the beginning of the year. Why this segregation of 180 days comes? We'll come to that later, but because the topic has come, we can understand it easily. The rate of depreciation that is applicable, what we have already seen here in this table, will become half if the assets are put to use for less than 180 days in the previous year. That is why we need to segregate the assets. For example, if an asset is purchased, like computers are purchased, and they are put to use for less than 180 days, then the rate of depreciation will not be 40%. It becomes half of that, means only 20%. If a computer is purchased and put to use for 180 days or more, then 40% rate of depreciation is applicable for the entire year. This is another important point we have to keep in mind. We are not going to calculate any time-based depreciation here. Depreciation is calculated on the entire amount. That is why, while we are talking about the computation of ending written down value on which we have to provide depreciation, we are not even talking about depreciation. We are only talking about assets. Actually, the block of assets. So opening written down value of the block of asset is how much? How much is the actual cost of the assets in the block, which are purchased and put to use during the previous year, segregated in two categories: those which are put to use for less than 180 days and those which are put to use for 180 days or more. Total will be taken here. Here there is no segregation, no problem. It's only for our computational convenience. Both of them will be added. Step 1 and step 2 will be added. From this, you have to deduct the sale of the assets. Sale of the assets means sale proceeds of the assets after deducting any expenditure to sale, if any. If there is any expenditure to sale, like brokerage, etc., commission, auction expenses, anything like that. Those expenses can be deducted, but net of that, whatever the sale proceeds of the asset are there, that will be reduced from this total which we already obtained. And how much of this can be the maximum amount of step 3 up to a maximum of step 1 plus step 2 only. Because if less amount sale proceeds are more than the total of step 1 and step 2, that means written down value become negative. Is there something called negative written down value? That is ridiculous. Is there something called negative depreciation? That is absolutely ridiculous. So this step 3 cannot exceed the total of step 1 and step 2. That has to be also kept in mind. So what if it exceeds? If it exceeds, then the chapter changes. Then we go to capital gains. We'll come to that later. But it cannot exceed. If at all we want to provide depreciation under section 32, we have to calculate written down value. For that purpose, the step 3 cannot exceed the total of step 1 plus step 2. That means the written down value here has to be positive. That is a point we have to understand. Because there can be only positive depreciation naturally. There cannot be any negative depreciation, which doesn't make any sense. That is the way we calculate the written down value at the end of the year before providing depreciation. On this written down value, what we calculated, the percentages are applied, and once you deduct that from this ending written down value, you get the depreciated amount. After the deduction of depreciation also provided, that goes to the next year as the opening written down value, and the story continues. This is how depreciation is computed in the Income Tax Act, using the block of assets concept, that too applying only one method, that is written down value method, taking opening WDV, add purchases of assets. Purchases means not raw materials and all. Assets purchased during the previous year at actual cost. What is actual cost? That's a separate discussion. And while the assets purchased are also added, we have to segregate those assets which are put to use for less than 180 days and 180 days or more. But both of them will be added anyway. From that, we need to deduct the sale proceeds of the assets, if any. After deducting from that, the expenses of sale, if any. Then step 1 plus step 2 minus step 3 will give written down value, depreciable amount we can call it. Depreciable amount at the end of the year will be that. On that, we have to provide a depreciation of some percentage as prescribed in this table. However, if there are assets which are put to use for less than 180 days, then the rates prescribed here will become half. Whatever it is. Whatever the rate is prescribed, just the rate of depreciation will become half. That is the essence of section 32, the methodology of calculation of written down value and depreciation. Now we will come to this actual cost concept and discussion in the next session. That is a detailed discussion that is required. But the point again here is core points of section 32. Let us continue. Whether it will matter on what date the asset is purchased, on what date the asset is sold. This is an important point to be noted. First point is the date of sale of asset is immaterial. It doesn't matter at all. In accounts it matters a lot because we will provide depreciation only up to the date of sale. Here we don't provide depreciation first of all on time basis. We provide depreciation on block of assets basis, full year basis. Our only differentiation is 180 days or less than 180 days. That's it. So date of sale is completely immaterial. That doesn't make any difference if the asset is sold on the 1st of July or 1st of December or 1st of April or 1st of any date during the previous year the date of sale happened. That is absolutely immaterial. That is a point to be noted. Of course, depreciation will not be charged on the assets which are sold during the previous year because already that is deducted. The sale proceeds are deducted from the opening written down value plus purchases. However, date of purchase is important. We know that already. Why also? Why? Because if an asset is acquired during the previous year and put to use for the purpose of business or profession for a period of less than 180 days, then only half of the depreciation shall be allowed. Half of what? Half of whatever the rate of depreciation prescribed in this table. For example, if plant and machinery was purchased during the previous year and put to use for less than 180 days, the rate of depreciation applicable on that will be only 7.5% instead of 15%. Half of the normal depreciation only shall be allowed in that case if the asset is put to use for a period of less than 180 days. Once again, put to use here is important, not purchase only. Asset may be purchased, let us say, in April. Actually, it might be put to use in, say, December. So, should we start the counting from April or December? 180 days. December only. So, 180 days is not for the number of days the asset is owned by the SSC. 180 days is for the period when it is put to use for the purpose of business or profession. However, put to use again should not be taken too much literally. As I told already about fire extinguishers, generators, inverters, they are not put to use. So, what should we do? That means whenever they are purchased, they are assumed to be put to use. Not that really they have to be actively put to use. But certain assets like plant and machinery will take time for installation and all. Purchased a plant and machinery on, let us say, July, and it took like 4 or 5 months to really install it and make it ready for usage. By the time already December has come, let us say, then the asset is put to use for less than 180 days. That's what we have to conclude in that case. Once again, everything depends upon the case-to-case basis. Exactly what is given in the question, we need to remember the provision. Definitely yes, we need to understand the provision and logic of how the depreciation is charged and calculated under section 32. Definitely yes, but when it comes to application, we have to use facts of the case carefully and according to them only we have to decide. So put to use is the word, very important here. Not just purchase. Purchase date is important. Put to use date also is important. Sorry, what if nothing is mentioned? Naturally, purchase date itself is put to use date. Then you cannot say it is deemed that, assumed that asset is put to use for less than 180 days. When the question says asset was purchased in, let us say, June 2019. No, that assumption will be once again illogical, invalid, inappropriate assumption. Don't take such assumptions. Asset is purchased means automatically it is put to use. If nothing is given about put to use means date of purchase itself is important, right? If it is given that purchased on a different date, put to use on a different date, then yes, then what becomes more relevant? Date on which the asset is put to use becomes relevant than the date of purchase. That is what the way of calculation of depreciation will be in case of assets belonging to different categories and different blocks of assets and different rates of depreciation applicable to them. And of course, the depreciation has two types of depreciation, normal and additional. We will discuss that also later. What is additional depreciation? We will discuss that in the next session. And we will also start solving some of the questions related to them. So the core aspects of section 32 we have covered today, and section 30, 31 anyway were also discussed in current session. In the next session, we will discuss about what is actual cost under different circumstances. Why should we have that discussion at all? If asset is purchased, whatever purchase price is there, that is actual cost. Then there is no problem. But reality will not be like that. There will be multiple scenarios, situations where the asset might not be purchased, but still SSC has acquired those assets. Then how to calculate actual cost? Different situations are there. That's theoretically important aspect, and some MCQs can definitely come on particular points in that discussion. Actual cost of the asset, how to calculate. That we will discuss in the next session. Also, we will discuss about additional depreciation provision. Where is it applicable, available, and what types of SSCs can claim additional depreciation over and above the normal depreciation, which we already know. So those are special circumstances. Those things also we'll discuss in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.